enjoy a meal in a smart restaurant. That is a beginning.
One critic has claimed that you cannot blow your nose without moralising on conditions in the handkerchief industry. But were you such a political firebrand when George Orwell was invented in 1933?
I spent 5 years in an unsuitable profession, the Indian Imperial Police in Burma. I then underwent poverty and the sense of failure. This increased my natural hatred of authority, but these experiences were not enough to give me an accurate political orientation.
His literary income remained slight, but in 1934 Orwell left his parents and rented a room in Hampstead, North London. This was then an enclave of intellectuals with fashionably left views.
I knew that I had a facility with words and a power of facing unpleasant facts. Unfortunately, you do not solve the class problem by making friends with tramps. In the highbrow world, you get on, if you get on at all, by going to cocktail parties and kissing bums.
One of Orwell's friends, whilst he was in Hampstead, was the anthropologist Geoffrey Gora.
I would have said he was an unhappy man. He was fairly well convinced that nobody would like him, which made him prickly.
The middle-class, bearded fruit juice drinkers are all for a classless society, so long as they see the proletariat through the wrong end of the telescope. Force them into any real contact with a proletarian, and they're capable of swinging back into the most ordinary snobbishness.
Even so, it was at a party in this house that Orwell met Oxford graduate and trainee psychologist Eileen O'Shaughnessy. She had, according to admirers, eyes that danced.
She was very pretty, very intelligent, very philosophical. She was very much interested in people. She was very much interested in everything. She was always thinking. I mean, her mind was working on those sort of things all the time.
Within days of meeting Eileen, Orwell proposed, and though she knew very little about him, she didn't say no. Lettice Cooper was one of the few friends to whom Eileen spoke about her feelings for Orwell.
She thought he was a very good writer, but I wouldn't say she took him seriously. She was very much amused often at things he said and did. He was very often thinking about something else. I mean, he was in a kind of world of his own half the time. But I think he loved her.
But Orwell's writing barely earned enough for him to scrape along. There wasn't enough for two. To cover the rent, he was working part-time in a bookshop, a job he was later invited to celebrate. Bookshop Memories wasn't what anyone expected.
In a town like London, there are always plenty of not quite certifiable lunatics walking the streets, and they tend to gravitate towards bookshops. They would come in and demand some rare and expensive book, would make us promise over and over again to keep it for them, and then would vanish, never to return. Many of them, of course, were unmistakable paranoics. There was a time when I really did love books, loved the sight and smell and feel of them. But as soon as I went to work in the bookshop, I stopped buying books. Seen in the mass, 5 or 10,000 at a time, books were boring and even slightly sickening.
Even the inanimate world was against him. He was awfully likely to knock things off tables, to trip over things. I mean, he was a gangling, physically badly coordinated young man.
After just over a year there, Orwell resigned from the bookshop.
To suppress my snobbishness, I have got to alter myself so completely that at the end I should hardly be recognisable as the same person.
And he needed money to marry Eileen.
I couldn't afford a ring, except perhaps a Woolworths one.
Gollancz offered him a potentially lucrative assignment to travel into industrial Britain and report on the distress of the working class.